So the next two videos, we will talk about how to pass in an array through the function. So that's what we call the array as function argument. So we see, for example, I have an int array called test, size is 5. If I want to write a function to display the content for the array, I call show scored function. So this function, I'm expecting an array to pass into the function. So in this function, I will display all the content for the array. So in order to pass an array to the function, you just need to using the array name. So for example, here our test array name is test. So then you just need to pass the array name here. So then they will passing the whole array through the function show scored. Of course, here is the function code. In order to define and declare this function to accept an integer array, we need to write the function prototype like this. So since the show scores function has no return type, so that will be the void. So your function name is show scored. The function prototype, you need to specify the parameter data type. So for the array, very important is your data type is we declare at the beginning. But besides data type int, don't forget we have very important is the square bracket. Because the square bracket associate with this data type, we know we are expecting an array. So that's why here in your function prototype, you have your return type, function name, and your data type. So the array data type, don't forget, you need to have your data type content from the array with your square bracket symbol. So then in your function header without the function body, so then you have your return type, function name, then the same thing, you need to have your array type. But here you see you have your array is int, right? So then don't forget, then you have your variable name. So here, let me show the purple color. This one actually is the array variable name. But this array variable name, since they are defined for the function. So on the other hand, this name we were using for the parameter in the show score function. So here, let me make the red color. The whole thing, that's mean the data type. So for the array data type is int with your square bracket. So then this test actually is a parallel, is the parameter name. So a lot of time we can pass in the array. But remember, array, we need to know very important thing is we need to know the size, right? So right, if you only pass in the array, one thing we can do is we can using the size of to calculate the array size. But on the other hand, most of the time we don't do the size of operator. When we have an array we want to pass in to the function, at the same time we also pass in the array size. So when passing an array to a function, it's very common we pass in array size. So that the function know how many elements to process. So of course, in our previous video, if we don't have the size, you can using the size of operator. But that's pretty common. We always passing by the array size. So that's why here our show score function will change a little bit. So we will have the first argument is the passing array. So then the second argument will be the array size. So array size data type is int. So that's why after we update, your show scored function prototype will have the first one is the array data type. So then you have the second one, the int, is our size. Okay, so this one you see here, I marked the red, that's mean the data type. So then the function header, the same thing. We will have the array data type. So the red color represents the data type. So then here you can see the size, either the size or the text. These are the variable name, the parameter variable name in this function. So after you understand that, that's right, that's show score, or we say here is the show values. So then this function prototype, we will passing one int array. So then the second parameter is the size. So when we implement this function, so you know actually in order to display the content for the array, we just need to have a for loop. So that our array name we call nums. So then the array size is size. So that's why here our for loop will start with index equal to 0 less than the size. So then using the array name with the index, we can display one by one. So here we're using the display and space. So after we finish this for loop, we display a new line. So of course here, if we want to format much better, you can have the set W. Or you can see, since we don't know how many elements in the array, you can have like every 20 or every 10 number in a line. So that's all up to you. But here we just want to simply to show you how the array function to implement that. So after you have this function implement, then you can see in the main function, we have one array size is 8. Then we declare one array called numbers. So then we have the initialization list. So we assign each value to the array. So when you want to call the function, you call the function name, then you pass in the array name. So you can see here in the main function, your array name is numbers. So then you pass in the size. So when you run, you will see the output. So of course, make sure you post the video and upload the example 7 to your IDE. So here is in our example 7. So then you can see your array size is 8. So then your array with initialization. So then that's our display. So earlier we have the 8 number to display. Okay, so that's your result. But one thing is, since you have your program run, right? So then let's change our array size become 10. Okay, so if you want, you can add more number. But one thing is, remember we say, if your initializer have 10 size, but you don't have enough value, they will replace the rest of that with 0. So then you can see when we run the program, right, they just display the last 2 is 0. So then we can see here in your for loop, it doesn't matter what your size is, we just need to pass in the value. In the for loop, they will all handle that. But the most important thing is, here this function will only process the int data type array. So that's passing the array through the function. So after you understand how to pass in an array through the function, I want to introduce you a keyword. And also depends on when you pass in the array through the function, what your purpose, we may need to use the constant keyword. So we see here, when you have array name in the function, they are just like the reference variable. Because you need to understand one thing is, array name actually represent a memory location. So array name actually is a reference variable. So if you just pass in the array, in the local function, they can change the array. Then they will reflect into the actual array in the calling function. So if you don't want your array to be updated in the local function, so we need to be cautious. The array cannot be changed. So then we need to use a const keyword. So what does that mean? I will show you in next video. So in next example to see with the const keyword or without the const keyword what happened. So we will see the example 7.1 and 7.2. See the 7.1 first. We just passing the array without the COMSC keyword. So I want to show you. Actually, we will continue with example 7. But besides, addition to the show values function, we have the add value function. So this add value function, we can see the function implementation is for each index. So add values, I still passing the array. I still passing the size. But I write a for loop. For each value for the array, each element of the array, I increment by 5. Right? So did you see here is num-index. After you have your num-index here, you access the element of the array. So I update the value of element array by 5. So that's why here you can see in our main function, I have an array size still equal to 8. I initialize that. So when I call the show value at the first time, they will display the content of array before adding. But in line 20, I add the value. So it's still passing the numbers and array size. So then afterward, I call show values again. You will see all the data from before, after the add values function, they being updated by 5. Not sure? So that's why you need to pause the video and run your program 7.1 on the Cloud9. Okay, so you can see here is our 7.1. We add one more function called add value. So here in add value function, in the for loop, we increment each element by 5. So that's why we show the array twice, but in between we call add value function. So then you can see here, when the first time we call the function, display the information, they are the original value. But after I call add value, I add each element by 5. So then when we display again, they are all add by 5. So the reason is when we passing the array, you see here we passing the numbers. When we passing the array, it is passing by reference. So when you passing this number array to the add value function, so even they're using different array name, but remember we passing by reference. So this nums variable refer to the same array location. So this nums array actually just right away refer to here. So that's why when they add the 5, they add the 5 to the array content. So that's why here your data being updated. So that's we need to be very careful. When we passing the array, we passing by reference. But sometimes if our purpose to passing the array, I'm not intended to change the content. So that's why in the example 7.2, we add the constant keyword. So for example, when we do the show value, when I want to show the value to display the array, actually I'm not intended to change their value. So I add a constant reference. So then here, the next one, I have a sum function. You passing the function, passing the array through the function, I calculate the sum of the array to you. But then because I only want to calculate the sum, I'm not intended to change the data. So that's why we're passing the constant reference. So this constant reference, actually, when you add the const, your implementation didn't change. You still display your result. You still add the index element value to the total. But the most important thing is if we run this program in the Cloud9. Okay, so then you can see here we will add the total. So then you can run the program. They will display the output. Okay, so to tell you the array and the total. and afterward you can see the data didn't change.